What do you think? In my last video, I was talking about how I didn't like my hair anymore. And so I did something about it just today, actually. I like it. Okay, today's story is really sad. They're all really sad, but this one, I heard it a few years ago and I just always remembered it. I remember going to my husband after and being like, I have to tell you about this story I just heard. So, we're going to talk about it today. I'm going to tell you what that story is all about. I'm Reagan Snyder, and this is the story of the Kim family. In 1989, James Kim was living in Louisville, Kentucky, where he had just graduated from Ballard High School. And from there, he went on to attend Oberlin College in Ohio. And he double majored in government and English. And he also played lacrosse for the varsity team. And James's life so far was going great. He graduated from college in 1993. He went on to become a TV personality and a technology analyst in San Francisco for a company called Tech TV. And so he basically just got to play with techie products and review them. He would review them for shows like The Screensavers, Call for Help, and Fresh Gear. Unbeknownst to James, he didn't realize that his life wouldn't really start until he met Katie. Katie, at the time that they met, was 21 years old. She was a college student in Seattle. James was 26, and Katie had taken a road trip with her friends from Seattle down to Northern California. And that's how she and James met. And she would later say that when she saw him, she just thought he was the cutest thing she'd ever seen in her life. And they were pretty inseparable the whole weekend. They even got matching tattoos. And from that point on, it was James and Katie. And their friends knew it. They had this great relationship. They were both very happy together. They were both very ambitious and driven and had goals and dreams, and they're always making these plans together. So in 1999, James and Katie went and they got married in Vegas. As they settled into their life as newlyweds, they settled into San Francisco, where James's work was. And they also opened up two stores together. One was a clothing store called Doe, and the other one was called Church Street Apothecary. And Katie ran these. And James kept moving further into his career. He became a senior editor of MP3 and digital audio for CNET. And so they're doing great. They're doing great in their careers. They're making good money. They're successful and they're happy. But then they came to a point where they're like, let's start a family. I think we're ready. I think it's time. So in 2002, Katie gave birth to their first little baby, a baby girl who they named Penelope. And then 4 years later, in 2006, came Sabine, their second little girl, and their family was complete. And so now that they've got this family, they feel like, is San Francisco right for us? Maybe we should look into going somewhere near family, somewhere that's a little more family friendly. And so Seattle just seemed like kind of the perfect spot to settle down and raise their little family. They had family and friends there. They had roots there. Seattle is also a tech hub. It's the home to tech giants like Amazon and Microsoft. So that was perfect for James and what he did. So in 2006, they decide that they are going to go spend Thanksgiving in Seattle with their family, but they're going to go a little bit before Thanksgiving just to scope it out, to view Seattle through the lens of, could we live here? Could we raise our family here? How does this feel? So they just decided to make a whole little family trip out of it. So they go, they explore a little bit. Thanksgiving comes and goes. It was a great day, good food, good company. And they were looking forward to the next part of their trip because they were going to stop in Oregon on their way home. They're going to spend a couple days at this inn called Tututoon Lodge, which was in Gold Beach in Oregon. So on Saturday, November 25th, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, they had planned to travel through the night. You know, they've got little kids. Sabine's about 7 months. Penelope's 4 at this point, and so they're little. So they're thinking, okay, we can just travel through the night and they'll sleep. At some point during their drive, they decided that they wanted to stop at Denny's for dinner. So they pull off, get some dinner, and around 9 p.m., they left Denny's and loaded the car back up and headed for this lodge. And as they headed south on the I-5, James drove while Katie navigated. And this is before GPS was what it is now. It was very primitive. It's 2006. So yes, it exists, but it's not as good as it is now. And so they're using a good old paper map. And so Katie's in the passenger seat navigating, but as they're traveling, there was a branch or a tree that was obscuring the sign to their exit that they were supposed to take, and James missed it. And they didn't realize that they had done this until quite a ways after missing it. So once they realize they missed it, they're like, crap, what are we going to do? It's already so late. So they pull over and they're trying to make a decision. Do we turn around or do we find another route? Because if we turn around, it's going to add like a couple hours onto this trip. And we've already, the kids are getting restless. It's already late. We've already been on the road for a while. So they're like, let's find another way to get there. So they're both looking at the map and they see this road. It's Route 23 that looks like a straight shot from where they are to this lodge. And they're like, perfect. It's a road called Bear Camp Road. And it looked great on the map, like a great option. But what they didn't realize is that this road is incredibly treacherous. It's not well traveled even in the summer because it's steep inclines, there's no rails. It's just a really dangerous road. So to travel it in the winter when it's snowing, it's like a death sentence. It wasn't plowed, it wasn't maintained, none of that. In fact, a little over a decade earlier, an RV salesman from Montana, his name was DeWitt Finley, he had attempted to travel this road during the winter, and he ended up getting stranded and starving to death. He didn't make it out of there. So very dangerous route, but they don't know this. So they go ahead and take this route, and James is slowly driving up this narrow road, and it's quickly inclining. Fast, fast, fast. And so as they get further up, the weather's getting worse. And because this road is so dangerous, there's a steel gate there to block vehicles from going any further. If they make a bad judgment call, like the Kim family, and don't realize it, or they get turned around, that gate is there to protect from that. But on this night, when the Kim family was taking this road, the gate was open and they didn't see it. It was vandalized, it was left open, and so the Kim family just drove right past this gate and into danger. And so James is starting to realize, like, this is I don't know about this. He's white knuckling it, he's all hunched, driving slowly. And to make matters worse, it started to snow. And so it's like 100 times worse. I hate driving in the snow. I can't imagine being on a road like that in the snow with my whole family. So they're slowly driving and James is kind of freaking out, but he's trying to stay calm. And they come to a fork in the road, which presented another decision that they had to make. So they're looking at it and they're like, which one seems like the best option? Which one seems the safest? And they ended up taking the one that seemed like it would be a good idea, but it ended up being the worst decision they could have made. It ended up being a logging road, and it was a long road. James, for 22 miles, is just slowly driving down this road. And at some point in those 22 miles, James and Katie are like, we are in trouble. They're lost. It's snowing. They can't see where they are. And so they pull out their phones to call for help, and they realize they don't have a signal, either of them, on their phones. So in an attempt to find a signal, James put the car in reverse and slowly, for a really long time, because there's nowhere to turn around, he's slowly driving backwards. And at one point, he had to open his door to look out to see where he was going because they were so close to the ledge. And so at some point, James is like, we got to stop because I can't see where I'm going. There's a cliff right here. I could easily drive the car off this cliff. This is not safe. We just need to stop, we'll sleep here for the night. We'll keep the engine running to stay warm, and we'll kind of reconfigure in the morning and figure out what we're going to do. At this point, it's like 1 or 2 in the morning. So they're tired. None of it's safe. So they find a spot that seems kind of safe. They're away from the ledge, and they put the car in park, leave it running to keep the heat going, and they just kind of try to get as comfortable as they can for the night. And the snow's piling up around them over through the night. But to make it worse, there were bears. Hence the name Bear Camp Road. And they're starting to surround the Kim's car. I mean, you're in the car, but that's still freaking scary. They're bears, and your whole family's in the car. So they're just bundled up, trying to wait for the sun to come up, and it was a long night. And when they saw these bears, Katie, who's got a 7-month-old in the back, pulls her out and like tucks her into her sweater, and she's holding her. Like, what if the bears get in and eat the baby? So they get through the night, the sun comes up. But with the sunlight came the realization that they really were stuck. There was a ton of snow around them. And to make matters worse, they weren't expected to be home for a few days. So it was highly unlikely that anybody would notice that they were missing. So they're like, nobody knows we're here. We don't have signals on our phone to call for help. We can't drive out of here. I mean, it was a really, really scary situation for them. So they're just kind of crossing their fingers and hoping and praying that anybody would stumble upon them and maybe be able to help them. As they waited for somebody to help them, all they could really do is sit in the car, try to stay warm, wait for the day to pass. They studied their map. They kind of tried to ration their food the best they could, because they weren't expecting to be in this situation, and so they didn't have much food. They gave most of it to Penelope, their 4-year-old, and they turned on the radio. And as they're listening to the radio, they learned that there are some big storms that were going to be passing by the area. So it's just like this situation has gone from bad to worse, and it's just getting worse and worse. They're not seeing a light at the end of the tunnel here. Nobody, not a soul, passed by that entire day. And so they came to the realization pretty quickly that they're going to have to spend a second night there. They're stranded in the car, middle of nowhere. There's bears, snow's piled up around them. They've got 2 babies in the back. So they spend another really long night in the car, just trying to manage, trying to stay warm. And the next day, Katie wrote a note detailing their situation, and she left it on a nearby logger's gate, hoping maybe somebody will see it and help them out of the situation. Meanwhile, James got out of the car and he wrote SOS really, really big in the snow, hoping that maybe there's a pilot or somebody in the air who would see the message, but nobody did. So another day goes by. They're waiting. They're trying to figure out what to do. They're trying to keep everybody warm, and nothing for a whole other day. So they're having to spend another night in this situation. And at this point, the kids who, babies cry, 4-year-olds are wild and bouncy. They don't know. They don't know what's going on. But they're starting to get weak and tired. Their parents can see that they're just kind of out of energy, and they're hungry. Their smiles were gone. Their cries were really thin. They were low on food. I mean, the situation was getting dire. Luckily, Katie was breastfeeding Sabine at the time, so she was able to feed both Sabine and Penelope just to make sure that they weren't hungry and could have the energy that they needed and nutrients that they needed. But she knew that she was not going to be able to keep this up if she wasn't eating. Her supply would start to dry up, and she wouldn't be able to provide that for them. By the end of the 3rd day, the car finally ran out of gas. And so there goes their source of heat. So they're like, we're going to have to build a fire somehow. They used their spare tire. They found pretty much anything they could, but it's snowing. And so all of the wood and things around them are wet. They really didn't have much to build this fire on. But they were able to build one, and for a minute they're kind of optimistic, like, okay, we've got some warmth here, it's gonna be okay. But that fire quickly died out. They were not able to get it going again, and they were just kind of screwed. They were cold. They had to huddle up in their car. And so James is getting frantic. He's like, if I don't do something drastic, my family's going to die. So he had one more idea. He thought, okay, if I can send a smoke signal up, maybe, just maybe, somebody will see it. I mean, this is their last option. So he took all 4 of the car's tires to build this fire, and because he knew he had to get the smoke big enough to go up beyond the tree line for somebody to see it. So he has to take the car's tires and make a fire out of that. And he was able to do it. And they're like, okay, this is going to be it. Somebody's going to see this. It's going to be okay. We're going to get rescued. But nothing happened. The fire burned out. Nobody came. So they're just out of hope at this point. And the situation was so dire that Katie looked at James and said, if our children die, I need you to promise me that you will take your knife and slit my wrists and lay me out next to my babies in the snow. Ugh, gosh, I would feel the same way, honestly. So a few more days go by and they're on their 7th day of being in this situation. And James is like, I have to take action. We can't just sit here and wait. My family is going to die. So James and Katie studied the map, and it looked like the nearest town was Gallus, which was about 4 miles away. So James is like, okay, I'm going to go. You guys stay here. I'm going to go to this town. I'm going to get us help. And he told Katie, if I can't find help, I will be back by this afternoon. He kisses his family goodbye. He puts on what he has, which is not much. He's got jeans, a shirt, some tennis shoes, and like a light jacket, like street clothes. Nothing that's really going to keep him warm in this weather. And he sets off into the freezing unknown to go find help for his family. And Katie is there with the kids, just hoping and praying that he can find help and things will be okay and that they're going to be okay. I can't even imagine how she must have been feeling. So Katie is taking care of the babies in the car all day, and she's just so full of anxiety, just waiting, looking out the windows, looking for James, any sign of him. And by the time the sun set, James still wasn't back. Unbeknownst to the Kim family, there was a search party that had been launched. There were volunteers. James' father was a wealthy owner of this international aerospace company, and he commissioned 3 helicopters and a search party of 25 to go find James and his family. About 4 days after they got stuck, James's coworkers reported him missing, and when he didn't show up for work. And so now they've got this big search party going on for the Kim family, but they don't know this. James doesn't know this. And so he's out trying to get help for his family in this brutal weather, not much on him, no food, probably very low on energy from being there for a week already. There were 2 cell phone engineers in Medford, Oregon, who heard about them and their situation that they were missing. It was a family of 4, and so they offered to help, and they were able to trace Katie and James's cell phones to the area that they're in to kind of narrow down the search. But these searchers, these volunteers, these people were not able to find them. It wasn't until a man named John Raker heard about the family that things would take a turn. John was a helicopter pilot, and when he heard about the family, he wanted to help. He's like, I have a helicopter. I can help. So he started his own search. He wasn't affiliated with any of the search groups or anything like that. He just wanted to be a good citizen and try to help this family out. So John goes out and he's looking around. He ended up coming within a mile of the Kim's car, but obviously he didn't know this before he had to turn back. But he wasn't going to give up. He went out a second day, and while he was flying around the area, he noticed some footprints in the snow. And so he kind of got closer to the ground, and he's trying to follow these footprints, and they led him to the car. When he spotted the car, he saw Katie outside waving an umbrella around. So he radios for help, and within minutes, there were more helicopters that had arrived to assist in this rescue. And Katie and the girls were suffering from frostbite and starvation. They were in great shape, but they weren't in terrible shape. They were alive. They're going to be okay. And so they were taken to the hospital. And Katie's just beside herself, ecstatic. She's like, oh my gosh. It had been 9 days that they had been there. And she's thinking, oh my gosh, James found help. We're safe. It's all going to be okay. And so when she asked about James, They didn't know what she was talking about. They said, no, we haven't seen James. James is still missing. And Katie just crumbled. She knew that there probably wasn't much hope for James. So after this 9 hellish days of being stranded and after their rescue, they realized that they were stranded within a mile of the Rogue River. And if they had gone about 4 miles downstream, they would have run into a place called Black Bar Lodge. And I guess it was closed for the season, but it was fully stocked. So, I mean, they would have been in much, much better shape if they had known this, but they didn't. And so Katie and the girls are okay. They made a full recovery, but James is still missing. And the volunteers and the search party are still looking for him. On the afternoon of December 6th, which is 2 days after Katie and the girls were rescued, James was found. His body was located in Big Windy Creek. He was lying on his back in about 2 feet of icy water. And in total, he had walked and hiked over 16 miles in wind and snow, all in an attempt to save his family. His hope was that he would follow the river back toward town, but it appeared that he unknowingly backtracked for about 11 miles. And then he turned down this ravine down the mountain, and the people who found him couldn't quite make sense of why he would have done that, but it's also known that when hypothermia sets in, people do weird things. When their body is so cold, it feels like they're hot and they start taking off their clothes. I mean, hypothermia is insane. And so they figured that that's what must have happened with James. After an autopsy, they determined that he died about 2 days after he left the car of hypothermia. James Kim loved his family. He loved them so much that he made the ultimate sacrifice for them. If he hadn't left that car, that helicopter pilot would not have seen the footprints that led him to the car to rescue his family. On February 18th of 2007, a memorial service was held at the Golden Gate Park in San Francisco for James, and the James Kim Technology Foundation was created in his memory to ensure that schools in San Francisco have access to technology. I tried to find out what his family's up to now, what Katie's up to now. I did find the girls' Instagram accounts. They're grown up. It looks like they're in college. I think one of them plays some sports. They're beautiful. And I'm sure that they know and love their dad and will always, always remember his sacrifice. As always, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you watching. If you have any thoughts, comments, opinions, please leave them in the comments. If you have any story recommendations, I would love to hear them. Drop those in the comments. You can find me on Instagram at TheStoryOfPod, and I will see you next time. Bye.